UNITA accuses the government of not sticking to its side of the bargain. Resentment is palpable in the camp. People say the authorities are there only for the arrival of the trucks and demobilization, but there's no food or logistics as promised. The FAR and the government have refused to be interviewed on the subject. But for the civilians, this has been a way of life for the past 28 years. They've lived like hostages, constantly uprooted by the warring parties. This is yet another displacement for them, but this time at least there's the promise of reunions at the end. That's the case for Teresa Palmeira. She hails from Wambo in central Angola, which she left when she was 18. Today she's 47.
It's been a long time. I left when I was very young. All I want is to find my family. It will be a miracle, though, because I was very young when we parted. I had no children. I was only 3 months pregnant. But later I gave birth to my daughter. She's 24 now and married. It's a miracle. It's a pity my parents are already dead. Luckily, though, my sisters are still alive.
Teresa's been away for so long that she mixes up her years. She hasn't had an easy life. She and her husband, a teacher, were displaced by UNITA and lived in the bush for years. She's given birth to 5 children and lost 2. And lately she's had a severe bout of malaria and was afraid she'd die in Mavinga, afraid she'd never see home. She's now been here for a month and has become nostalgic for the past.
Our living conditions are very hard. We lack houses, food, medicine, and it's very difficult for us. It's not a normal life. In the past, we lived well, but not anymore.
The conditions are difficult. Thousands of people are packed into a cramped space, and in the evenings the smoke from the cooking fires makes it difficult to breathe. Malaria is endemic in the region, and the camp is a high-risk zone for epidemics. For Médecins Sans Frontières, which has been operating in Mavinga since 2002, it's a real trouble zone.
As soon as people arrived, we had cases of bloody diarrhea. So, what we did to prevent that was to build latrines. But we stopped quite quickly because the camp was expanding over land which we suspected was mined. So we built 16 latrines, then we stopped. But the main problem we have is that nobody wants to stay in the hospital because they don't want to miss. They're on a waiting list, and if they miss the plane, well, they miss the plane. So death rates have risen. What is sure is that people suffering from severe malaria who should be in hospital will just take their medicine and go back to wait in the sun for a plane to come.
To reduce the risk of epidemics, water taps were installed next to the hospital. Twice a day, endless queues of women and children wait their turn for hours. It's the only way to get water in the camp. The alternative would be a 4-kilometer walk to the river. The children of the camp have found a solution to that problem, a trade-off. They fill the soldiers' truck with water for a free ride to the river and the right to fill 1 jerry can of their own. A single word sums up life in Mavinga: waiting. Waiting for water, waiting for a plane, for money, for food. Food that's flown in daily by the World Food Programme on an average of 4 to 5 planes. It takes 1,600 tons, $80,000 to feed Mavinga for a month.
Why is the international community so lenient with a government that is so irresponsible towards its fellow countrymen? It's unacceptable, and it's been going on for years. You, the international community, you feed the Angolans, and I make war with the country's money. Every time the government of Luanda, which produces 800,000 oil barrels per day, every time it says there's no money, we can't feed 2 million Angolans, there you go. The international community takes action and comes to help. But today the war is over. We wonder where the money is. Where did the money go?
Diamonds and oil, Angola's two main resources, paid for the war on both sides. Oil for the MPLA and diamonds for UNITA. Diamond sales earned UNITA an estimated $3.7 billion between 1992 and 97. And Angola is the second biggest oil producer in Africa. 800,000 barrels a day, 90% of the country's exports, meeting 8% of the crude oil needs of the US. But today in Angola, people still line up for food. 12 kilos of corn, a litre of oil and a bag full of beans per person per month. That will have to keep them going. In Mavinga, even if you have the money, there's little to buy in the market. Nothing has been planted because of the war and landmines. Famine is the eternal spectre.
We have food rations for 30 days, but it's only enough for 15 to 20 days. People are hungry.
The problem is the number of people written down on the ration cards. For instance, sometimes only 4 people out of 6 in a family appear on the ration card. If food rations are distributed for 4 people, it's normal it's not enough.
Não tira mais saco dali, pá. Mas esses todos estão irão onde? Vocês vão aonde, meus senhores? Vão aonde, meus senhores? Estou a perguntar, esse grupo vai aonde? Esse grupo vai aonde?
Then it's chaos. The planes that take people to quartering areas start coming in. Nobody really knows beforehand when they will arrive, how many there will be in one day, and where they're going to go. It's spur-of-the-moment organization. Tension is high. Only one 50-kilo bag of corn per family and personal belongings are allowed on the plane. The surplus is left on the tarmac. There is excitement in the air, but also fear of separation, of what's to come.
Once a woman left with no food and her husband stayed on the runway with the luggage, without knowing when he'd be able to leave or where his wife and children were. Does the government care about feeding our wives and children wherever they are? As for the husbands who stayed, have they got a means of transportation to go where their families are?
As mamães ficam aqui. Mãe, fica aqui com as crianças. Isso não está pesado. Isso não está pesado.
Antonov's crammed to the hilt, sometimes 4 a day with over 100 people on board, the maximum load, leave Mavinga for the quartering areas in the centre of the country. At this rate, it will be several more months before the diamond-rich UNITA stronghold of Cuando Cubango is emptied.